He thought the worst betrayal was losing his marriage, until he realized his wife wasn't just leaving him. She was erasing him from his own life while building her empire with stolen power. Damon Caldwell spent 12 years silently supporting his wife Yvette's rise to CEO, believing every sacrifice he made at home was building a stronger future for their family. But everything collapsed the moment she placed divorce papers on his desk and walked away, leaving behind a trail of hidden financial transfers, corporate manipulation, and a truth that would turn his quiet life into a calculated battle for justice, custody, and control of everything they once called theirs. Damon Caldwell was 41 years old and had spent 12 years silently holding together the foundation of his wife Yvette's rising career, managing their home, finances, and raising their daughter Nadia, while she climbed toward the CEO position she had always wanted. He never complained, never demanded recognition, and believed they were building a life together until the morning after her board promotion, when she entered his home office in a tailored suit, placed a manila envelope on his desk, and calmly told him she had already prepared divorce papers a month earlier before leaving for work, as if nothing had changed. Inside that envelope, Damon discovered not only the end of their marriage but proof that the decision had been planned for nearly 2 years. And when he checked their joint investment accounts, he saw $340,000 had been quietly drained in carefully timed withdrawals, while he had been raising their daughter and trusting her completely. As he dug deeper, he uncovered a hidden joint account between Yvette and her CFO Derek Ashton, confirming that the financial betrayal was tied to a long-running affair and a calculated plan to separate him from everything he had built. Instead of reacting emotionally, Damon remained controlled, documenting everything with precision, reviewing bank records, property files, and consulting contracts that revealed his true financial strength had been completely underestimated. While Yvette assumed he was insignificant and replaceable, Damon quietly reactivated his professional network, secured legal and financial experts, and uncovered even deeper corruption involving company funds at Harmon Lux, where her CEO appointment was tied to misappropriated money and hidden transactions worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. As the evidence stacked up, Damon's position transformed from a dismissed husband into the central force of a collapsing system built on deception. And when Yvette confidently filed for divorce expecting a simple outcome, she instead walked into a carefully constructed legal response backed by forensic accounting, property rights, and corporate fraud exposure that left her attorney struggling to respond. In the final meeting, as every layer of deception was exposed in front of lawyers and documents, Damon calmly explained that he had supported everything she built while she planned his removal for years, then stood up and walked out without anger because the truth no longer needed emotion to defend it. And by the time settlement discussions began, he had secured the home, custody of Nadia, full financial recovery, and a legal position so strong that everything Yvette had taken for granted collapsed back into the reality she had underestimated from the very beginning. Damon Caldwell's departure from the meeting did not end the situation. It accelerated it, because once Yvette fully realized the scale of what had been uncovered, every move she made began collapsing under its own pressure. Her legal team immediately pushed for emergency settlement talks, but Patricia Keene controlled the pace, refusing to allow panic-driven negotiations to rewrite accountability. What Yvette had once believed would be a clean divorce now turned into a controlled legal unraveling where every financial transfer, every corporate decision, and every hidden connection between her and Derek Ashton was being examined with forensic precision. Meanwhile, Damon returned to a quieter rhythm at home, continuing to care for Nadia, but now with the awareness that his silence was no longer weakness. It was strategy. Each day brought new confirmations from investigators, more hidden vendor payments, more inconsistencies in Harmon Lux's pre-IPO filings, and more evidence that Yvette's rise to CEO had been supported by financial manipulation that could trigger serious legal consequences. Derek, once confident in his position, began distancing himself as subpoenas loomed, and internal audits increased pressure on their department, revealing that their so-called partnership had been built on mutual self-interest rather than loyalty. Yvette, for the first time, found herself losing control of the narrative she had carefully constructed, as board members at Harmon Lux quietly requested explanations for irregular transactions that could jeopardize the company's public offering. Patricia used this moment strategically, keeping Damon's strongest evidence reserved while tightening legal pressure through formal notices and compliance threats that made settlement less of a choice and more of an inevitability. At home, Damon stayed consistent, preparing meals for Nadia, maintaining structure, and refusing to be pulled into emotional chaos, because he understood that every reaction could be used as leverage. When Yvette finally attempted to reach him directly, her tone had shifted from confidence to negotiation, offering revised custody arrangements and financial terms that no longer reflected control but compromise. Damon listened calmly but did not agree to anything beyond what his legal team advised, understanding that patience now had more power than confrontation. As the case moved toward resolution, the truth of what Yvette had done was no longer hidden behind corporate layers or personal narratives. It was documented, traceable, and irreversible, and the same system she believed would protect her was now preparing to hold her accountable. Yvette's confidence, once unshakable, continued to erode as the case moved from private negotiation into formal exposure, because Patricia Keene had now escalated the matter beyond divorce court and into regulatory scrutiny tied directly to Harmon Lux's pre-IPO filings. What began as a marital dispute had evolved into a potential corporate fraud investigation, and that shift changed everything about how the board, the legal teams, and even Yvette's allies responded. Internal auditors were brought in quietly, and within days, the same vendor transactions that once looked like harmless accounting entries were flagged as unauthorized fund diversions linked to personal accounts connected to Derek Ashton. Derek, sensing the direction of the investigation, attempted to protect himself by cooperating selectively. But his statements only strengthened the timeline showing coordinated financial misconduct during Yvette's rise to CEO. Meanwhile, Damon remained steady in the background of the storm, focusing entirely on Nadia's stability, ensuring her routine never broke even as the world around them shifted into legal chaos. At home, he became the calm center of her life, while outside, every layer of Yvette's constructed reality was being pulled apart piece by piece. Patricia's strategy became increasingly precise. She wasn't rushing to destroy Yvette. She was building an undeniable record that made denial impossible. Each filing introduced another layer, emails, bank trails, board approvals, that showed how deeply the financial manipulation was embedded into both Yvette's personal and professional advancement. As pressure mounted, Harmon Lux's leadership quietly distanced themselves from the scandal, preparing contingency plans to protect the upcoming public offering, even if it meant sacrificing executives involved in the misconduct. Yvette, who once believed she controlled both her marriage and her company, began to realize she was losing both simultaneously, and for the first time, panic replaced calculation in her decisions. She attempted to regain leverage by proposing a faster settlement, offering Damon increased financial terms and adjusted custody arrangements, but Patricia rejected the offer outright, stating that the case was no longer about negotiation but accountability. Derek eventually vanished from public view, resigning under internal pressure, leaving Yvette isolated and exposed as the primary focus of the investigation. Damon, when informed of the developments, did not react with satisfaction or anger, only quiet understanding, because everything unfolding had already been documented long before it reached this point. When Yvette finally requested a direct conversation, she arrived without her earlier confidence, her tone stripped of authority as she tried to appeal to what remained of their past, but Damon met her with calm detachment, reminding her that every decision she made had already been recorded in evidence, not emotion. As she left that meeting, she realized the truth too late. The life she thought she had taken control of was never stable to begin with. It was simply waiting for the right moment to be exposed.